Hello, well, I'm here today with Mike Konig, who is in Japan. It's Friday morning here in the UK and Friday evening in Japan. Welcome, Mike, and thanks for being with us this evening.
And thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great that you've been able to join us. Now, Mike, you trained with Global English a long time ago, and you've been in Japan for 24 years. Is that right?
That's correct. And I think I did my Global English 150-hour training between 2005 and 2006.
Okay, so that's amazing that you've been able to train and have been using that in some capacity in your teaching. And you've kindly agreed to answer a few questions for anyone interested in coming to Japan, giving them the benefit of your experience. So I just wondered if I could have you rewind to when you first went to Japan. Thinking back to that first year, what was the thing that most surprised you and perhaps the most challenging thing that you came across? I suppose, in other words, if I were coming to Japan for the first time, what could I expect?
Well, probably the most surprising thing that I experienced was that Japanese people are really keen to just walk up to a foreigner on the street and start a conversation. And so they'll walk up and say, "Hi, what country are you from?" Or, "Hi, do you have a couple minutes to practice my English?" And I've had some really good conversations with that. So that's one thing. The Japanese are really keen to practice their English. They've studied through elementary school and junior high school, and so they're keen to get a little real world practice with a foreign native speaker.
That's incredible. Okay, that's really interesting. That's not something I would naturally have assumed. So that speaks to quite a welcoming society towards Westerners, would you say?
I would say so. And, that's one of the things I love about Japan. The Japanese people have a great hospitality. And in my first weeks in Japan, I was invited to so many people's houses, to meet the family and just kind of relax and enjoy. So, and I was in the countryside too. So I would say it's even more hospitable out in the countryside as opposed to the city.
Okay. So that kind of leads me into my next question, really, because I know from teaching abroad myself that many language teachers, when they go to a new country, it can be difficult to make friends among the Japanese in your case, or the Portuguese or Mexican society in my case. So there's that temptation, isn't there, just to blend into the expat group and have that as your core group of friendship. Is it easy, or have you found it easy to break into Japanese society? And what suggestions could you give to people who are coming for the first time to help smooth that transition?
Yeah, actually, since I started out in the countryside, I didn't have a major problem breaking into society. And one thing I learned is that before I came to Japan, people always told me, "Mike, the Japanese people, no matter how long you stay in Japan, you'll always be considered an outsider." But from my experience, I've made a lot of good friends. I've been here 25 years, and in my community, I don't consider myself an outsider, and I have several people that I consider close friends and even family. So that's something that I learned. That belief was a little bit not spot on. Yeah.
So I guess that also makes me think of another question, and that is about language. I mean, I understand that Japanese is one of the hardest languages to learn. What's your experience been?
Yeah, it's my first week in Japan. Ordering at McDonald's, it was baptism by fire. So my suggestion for anybody coming to Japan or any other country is to learn some functionally good phrases to use, ordering. Also, when you first meet people, learn some good phrases that you can use, some greetings. And then when you get here, study even more, because knowing the language makes it so much easier to get around.
Yeah, I mean that's great advice, actually, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think especially for Japan, but for going anywhere. Okay, so you're an English teacher and you've
Mhm.
got quite a varied range of classes, I understand. Could you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your teaching day? What does an average teaching day look like?
Well, usually I teach in the mornings, from about 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. That's usually at a kindergarten or at an elementary school, so teaching kids. Then I'll go home for a couple hours, have the afternoon off, relax, and then I have evening lessons, usually with adults, at community centers or at their homes, or I teach at a hospital in my hometown right now. So yeah, a lot of different people to teach. Anybody from 0 years old to 80 years old.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
so tell me about teaching youngsters in Japan. What's that like?
You know, teaching youngsters is, for me, it's really a lot of fun because I like to entertain, and I do magic for the kids. I do balloons. Of course, I mix it in with the lesson. And it's really interesting to see the kids whisper to their partner, wow, this teacher is interesting. I really like this teacher. And you can see in their eyes that they're really enjoying it. And also to see them really understanding what they're learning in English, and seeing them get excited about that. Sometimes the students will give you handmade things. I
Oh,
got
that's
this
amazing.
2 years ago. Yeah. I love English, and they drew a picture. It's Mike. So the thing with kids is that you know if they like you or they don't like you. They're so honest, and I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And how have you found teaching business English there? What are the particular things that students tend to need or ask for in their business English classes?
Now this is going to be interesting because um, when I've gone to business places per se over the last 24, 25 years, um, you know, I was prepared to teach a grammar lesson or a business language. And a lot of times the students would say, oh, can we put that aside? I just want to practice conversation.
Okay.
And that, um, I find that a lot of my students, they have studied English for many years, and they just want to practice real, live English conversation with a native speaker.
Mm.
So they say, oh, can we just practice free conversation? And then with my style of teaching with that is, yeah, so we'll have a nice English conversation, but when they start to have problems somewhere, then I'll throw in a grammar lesson and and you know kind of smooth over the bumps in their English, and also teach them some new vocabulary.
Mm.
So yeah, so the point is that a lot of people in Japan, uh, they just want to practice free conversation, and that's kind of my specialty.
Okay, yeah. So that's a niche that you've found, and
Yeah,
that's answering that need, that desire that they have to just become more fluent, I guess, in their
yeah.
spoken and yeah English. I mean, just coming from the West, how would you
Mm.
say Japanese people view you?
You know, I think the Japanese people really like to meet foreigners. I guess variety is the spice of life. And we have a lot of foreign people in Japan these days, Vietnamese, Chinese, Americans. And I think Japanese people take well to foreigners. So they're very keen to come up and talk to us invite us out for coffee. And I think the Japanese really like having foreigners, to enjoy life with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great, and it sounds like you've built a really worthwhile and enjoyable life for yourself there. So that's amazing. I've got a final question, which in part is prompted by the last couple of years, the pandemic. But at Global English, we've seen more Japanese native speakers coming to us with good levels of English, training to be English language teachers, with a view to actually teaching in Japan. And is this increase something that you've noticed? There are more Japanese, from what you can see, getting involved in English language teaching?
I've noticed that there have been a lot of Japanese teachers of English. And here's one thing that I'll leave you with. When I came to Japan, I had this idea that I'm a native speaker, so I'm the best English teacher, and these Japanese English teachers have nothing on me. And I got taken down a couple of steps because there were some really great Japanese teachers with great technique that I met. And they do a really good job, and they have really good technique. So, but yeah, I think, for Japanese English teachers, since they've had to, work really hard to get their English down, I think they have a certain empathy for other students who are just beginning to speak English, and they can offer a lot of advice.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for the advice that you've given us today. It's been really helpful. I'm sure everybody who's viewing this will find that useful, especially if they're thinking of coming to Japan and experiencing some of the rich life and culture that you've been doing over there for the last 24, 25 years. So on behalf of us, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you today. All the best.